Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. Today we're dedicating the whole program to New Horizons on Autism, a condition that has been escalating throughout the world. In the United States alone, the statistics are quite alarming. 1 in 150 children are diagnosed as autistic children every day. And 20 years ago, the rates were 1 in 10,000 kids. Something is happening. We really need to pay attention. So we would say this program is about nourishing the souls of parents, educators, and also the community at large, so we can reach out and be supportive of one another, because an autistic kid needs more people to help than we can imagine. And that's why Kardec Radio is here to reach out to all of you. Before we start talking about autism and spirituality and bring our guest, Dr. Olga Bogdashina, directly from the United Kingdom, who is a leading expert in the field of autism, New Horizons, and spirituality, we would like to share with you a few news announcements that are happening here. This particular Sunday, if you are in Charlotte, North Carolina, we would recommend that you stop by at the Abraham Lincoln Spiritist Society. They are going to be screening the movie No Solar, Our Home by the Spirit Dr. Andre Lewis at 3 p.m. tomorrow. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., it's going to be July the 28th at 3 p.m. They're going to have a gathering, a tea, and also a screening of the movie No Solar, which has caption in English. The whole meeting is in English, and if you speak Portuguese, English, Spanish, doesn't matter. It's going to be unified in a single language, English. Abraham Lincoln Spiritist Society can be found at the following website: www.spiritism.t as in Tom, K as in key, www.spiritism.tk. Their address is 1805 Sardis Road, North, Suite 120, Charlotte, North Carolina. Their phone number is 704-492-4774. These are important news, and it's 704-492-9774. Repeating to you. If you have questions, just write to Kardec Radio. But remember, it's going to be tomorrow, July the 28th at 3 p.m. Don't forget about it, because it's something really, really important. And at the end of August, there's a beautiful program organized by the Atlanta Spiritist community. It's their 6th Spiritist conference, and you can get to know more about them just by going to atlantaspiritistconference.com and getting to know about the event they're organizing on the last weekend of August, the 24th and 25th of August. Something also not to miss if you are in the area of Atlanta, Georgia. Now back to the topic we're discussing today. We're talking about autism. Allan Kardec himself, when he talked in the Spirit's book, he didn't talk about autism because the term didn't exist at Kardec's time. But we can almost foresee that he was dedicating to all types of behavioral disorders. He talks about how previous lives' experiences, reincarnation, impact on our current existence in the flesh, in a new reincarnation, how previous choices impact. And to give you some tips and hints, I'm going to read to you a short article that we wrote and is going to be published both in the British Spiritist Psychology Journal, as well as in the upcoming issue of the Spiritist magazine. It's about the therapeutic process of autism from the Spiritist perspective. And this is how it goes. Life really goes on, one after another. Each reincarnation serves as a relay station for the next. The same happened to Anderson. In the latest reincarnation, he was an autistic child. His parents had a hard time to deal with his condition, especially because he was born at a time in which autism was less known than today. Searching for treatment choices, his family encountered a spiritist center in which spiritual treatment was offered. The caring spirit, Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, then took the lead of Anderson's case. He described that Anderson's autism was a typical case on autism in which it serves as a temporary protection for the autistic person's enraged victims and the memories of unhealthy choices in the past. In Dr. Bezerra's deep perspective, he discloses that in a previous life, Anderson was an elegant and very assertive writer. However, he had the disturbing habit of writing infamous anonymous letters to those whom he did not like, creating discord and disturbance. Single, Anderson never settled for marriage, but he liked a married woman to whom he had a tie of friendship. Envying the couple, Anderson started writing those letters to both husband and wife, planting seeds of discord and jealousy. His assertiveness was such that the husband killed himself truly believing that his wife was dishonoring him. The woman then fell ill and died of depression. Anderson's previous life personality used his intelligence to create emotional misery. Not only conquered animosity, but Anderson also used his intelligence in a twisted way. Now the spirit of Anderson carries guilt to be diluted over time, while in need of renewing opportunities to begin again. Anderson represents a case on self-obsession expressed biologically under the temporary frame of autism. In our current times, autism is on the rise. According to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, 1 in 150 American children and 1 in 94 boys are diagnosed with autism. 20 years earlier, the prevalence was 1 in 10,000 children. Autism is a complex developmental disability that typically appears during the first 3 years of life, and it affects a person's ability to communicate and interact with others. Autism is also mostly prevalent in boys. When asking the worldwide medium Divaldo Franco about the reasons why this is happening, he answered in exclusive interview to the Spiritist magazine, issue 7, that despotic and violent behaviors, as well as the ones that generate conflicts and wars, are typical of the male individual. It is then the masculine in our immortal psyche that compromises its integrity with such behaviors. And in a world of transition, when we are all invited to a new non-violent being, when meekness and peacemaking shall be the traits of the new generations, then we get a new understanding on the needs of experiencing such condition. Though the physical underpinnings are quite unknown by science today, the spiritual causes have already been revealed through the teachings of the Spiritist science. Heir of oneself, the millennial soul imprints its genetic code, the needed predisposition of the condition. As the Spirit André Luiz explains in the book Evolution in Two Worlds, every morbid predisposition is triggered by a grave mistake we made, one in which its memories inflict disturbances in our mind and our spiritual body, the perispirit. creating a nodule of disturbance in the perispirit. The millennial spirit will need to reincarnate to rebalance and transform that vibratory nucleus of disturbance. There is no actual victim in the universe since we are all co-creators in it. In need of educational readjustment, the autistic individual will need parents' and educators' help to transform the often unconscious inner guilt that triggers self-obsession and walk the three-step ladder of spiritual transformation: repentance, expiation, reparation, a truly inevitable journey to inner ascendance. The spiritist therapy allied to modern healing techniques will definitely contribute to change humankind's mental charge, disclosed Dr. Bezerra de Menezes. Such was the successful case of Rafael, an autistic kid from Brazil who received traditional and complementary medicine care in a psychiatric hospital where spiritist therapy is also applied. Receiving the healing passes, he recovered his lack of vital energy. After 6 months receiving the passes therapy, when the spiritist practitioners realigned his vital centers, Raphael was more rebalanced and started living a better quality of life. Another technique applied in his case was the disobsession therapy, in which his enemies of the past received counseling and had a change of heart regarding the avenging persecution. Dear listener, in need of healthy affection, the immortal soul of the autistic child needs loving dialogue, boosting their inner capacity of self-forgiveness, while calling the individual to the reality of the present. Parents then exercise the loving dialogue spirit to spirit, as proposed by the renowned medium and humanitarian from Brazil, Eurípides Barçanufo. It is truly necessary that parents, especially the mother, talk to the autistic child, calling the spirit to the reality of the body. Disclosed the renowned medium Chico Xavier about cases on autism. Taking the immortal perspective, autism then becomes a true opportunity to rebalance the past while preparing each one of us for the beautiful future that is ahead. Dear listener, this is an article that we wrote talking about the spiritist approach to autism. You will read in the upcoming issue of the magazine and also in the British Journal of Spiritist Psychological Studies. Right now, we'd like to kickstart the program by setting the tone with a message that fits in for everything, but for autism in a specific. Wait and Love Always by the Loving Spirit, May May, through Chico Xavier, in the CD and book that you can find at the Spiritist Society of Baltimore's website, www.ssbaltimore.org. The CD and the book is entitled Enlightening Messages. After the break, Dr. Olga Bogdashina is going to help us understand more about autism and the new horizons that lie ahead on this condition.
Wait and love always. Much affliction will be cut at the root if you learn how to smile in silence. Many grudges will be forgotten if you forgive the inequity you implore for the peace of the Lord. But the Lord equally awaits your participation in the peace of others. Reflect on the needs of your brother before you criticize his thoughtless deeds. Oftentimes, the aggressiveness with which he hurts you is only his anguish, and the rude word which he uses to return your care is nothing but the wound in his heart poisoning his mouth. Aid 1,000 times before you disapprove only once. the swamp admits ailing currents, for it did not find hands to dry it out. And the desert brings on thirst and suffering, for it did not receive the morning dew. Allow mercy to develop into silent help in your heart, so that pain may fade away. Do not fuel the fire of evil with the dry log of irritation and hate. Wait and love always. In silence, the prune tree multiplies its own fruits, and the sky, overtaken by the nocturnal shadows, reveals the glory of the stars. Think of Christ, our silent friend. Without demands or self-acclaim, he wrote the immortal poems of forgiveness and love, hope and happiness in the heart of the earth. Let's make him our model in our daily struggles, and by tolerating and helping today in this short human existence, we will reap tomorrow the blessings of the silent light, which will show us the ways to eternal life.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Available for purchase the book, This Obsession, psychographed by the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier. In this book, the spirit André Luiz recruits new groups of workers of goodness whose intent is to aid in the readjustment of those no longer in the physical plane. Learn more by purchasing your copy at www.sgny.org.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Listen to our sister radio, Bazera Online Web Radio, retransmitting Kardec Radio shows 3 times a day. Also, beautiful and inspiring programs in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to www.spiritist.com.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are here honored by the presence directly from the United Kingdom of Dr. Olga Bogdashina. She has been researching a lot on the science of autism, and recently she has been publishing findings and conclusions on the relationship between autism and spirituality. She's also the co-founder and program leader and lecturer at the International Autism Institute, KSPU. She has been working extensively in the field of autism as a teacher, a lecturer, and a researcher. And amongst her recent books is Autism and the Edges of the Known World, as well as Autism and Spirituality. Thank you so much, Olga, for being with us today at Kardec Radio.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
It's great. You know, this is such a topic that people have been looking forward to hear about. And we have heard that the statistics on autism is really increasing year after year. Is that true?
Yes, definitely.
And what is happening there? If you could give us some perspective on what autism really is, its features, and why do you think the rate of autism is really escalating?
Okay, let us start with the definition, right?
Okay, yes.
Let us start from the very beginning. I will tell you I don't like the traditional definition of autism because traditionally autism is defined as a lifelong complex disability or condition, and that typically starts during the first years of life, and it is characterized by impairments in social communication, stereotyped behaviors, activities, restricted interests, and so on and so forth. You know why I don't like this definition? This is absolutely true. Yes. It is, and it is good in a way, this definition, because it helps us to recognize autism, right? If we see the child's behavior, we think, oh, he can be or she can be autistic. But what I don't like about this definition is it doesn't tell us why. These are just behaviors. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like iceberg. That's what we see above the water, right? But something under the water causes these behaviors, right?
Yes.
And that's why it is much more important to find out what are the causes of these behaviors, because otherwise many Titanics would crash. You know? So this is why, see, I would prefer to find out the reasons for these behaviors. Of course, I cannot tell you, I'm not a specialist, and I don't think even specialists know the biological causes of autism yet. Because there are several possible causes of autism that lead to the same clinical picture, to the same behaviors. What I'm interested in as a psychologist and what is happening between these biological causes, right? Or environmental causes, whatever, and behaviors, that is some sort of psychological causes, right? And that's how I come to sensory perception. I started my research in autism 25 years ago. To give you a clue, my son, who is autistic, is 25 years old.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I started, but because my PhD was in linguistics, and I was head of the department in the linguistics university. But when my son was born and he was diagnosed not just autistic, I would live with this, right? Hopeless. That's when I disagreed, and I decided to become a specialist myself. So that's how I started my research. And because I worked with my son and I established the first school in Ukraine for autistic children, I started noticing that it's not about just, these behaviors, that they don't know how to socialize, how to communicate. They cannot socialize and communicate differently from what they were doing because their sensory perception was so different. So 25 years ago, I started my research, and my second dissertation was in sensory perception and autism, in their sensory perceptual development, because it explains a lot. And this is why, see, for me, autism, I would prefer the definition given by Macram and colleagues, who call autism the intense world syndrome. So they think, I think they are right, that all these behaviors are rooted in different sensory perception and sensory overload, hypersensitivity, and many other aspects of sensory perception. It leads to differences in cognitive, in linguistic, and in social development. And then we see all these behaviors. And that is why it is so important to understand how they experience the world, right? Not just to tell them, stop fidgeting, don't flap your hands. You see, these are sort of protective mechanisms. They do it not because, they want to do it and they don't want to listen to us. But these behaviors help them to organize their world, perceptual world. After that, when I investigated all this sensory perception and this cognitive and communication development, it brought me to spirituality.
Wow.
My son, my research in autism, brought me to this subject. And that is why I started writing this, a book about, it was supposed to be titled Autistic Sensitivities and Their Connection to Spirituality. But 1/3 into the research for this book, I knew I was writing a different one. Because before I could even approach spirituality, I had to investigate senses and language. So that's how the book was published, and it is Autism and the Edges of the Known World. This is some sort of preparation for the research in autism and spirituality.
The question here, a listener has also sent it because she has an autistic kid, And what she found out, according to what she's been investigating personally, is that there are many different types of autism. Is that right?
Yes, I would say autisms. There is not autism, but autisms. But they all can be titled intense world syndrome. These children cannot tolerate the world. You know what I mean? It's too much for them. They are perceiving too much. They are remembering too much. It's too much. So that is why I would call it intense world syndrome. I have to clarify this.
Sure.
There are no two autistic individuals with exactly the same sensory perceptual profile. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, yes, their sensory perception is different, but for each individual, different senses are involved and different features are manifest. And that is why I say what is good for one person is not good for the other.
Exactly.
Someone would love the sound of running water. The other wouldn't tolerate it. So it is very important to know sensory perceptual profile of each individual we live or work with to accommodate their needs.
Mm-hmm. So for those, Olga, who are listening to us and are not acquainted with some of these technical scientific words, when we are saying the perception, it's that we're talking about the stimulus that they are receiving from the environment and how they are processing it.
Can I
right? Yes.
this?
Yes, please.
We or I always distinguish when I assess a person with autism 7 senses, right?
Yes.
So the first is all senses or combination of senses can be affected in autism, and it is vision, hearing, tactility, sense of taste, sense of smell, proprioception, and vestibular system. What is important to remember that visual problems, it's not that they are blind, they are not, though there are blind and autistic people, but still, it means they see everything differently, right? Mm-hmm. Auditory problems, it's not they're deaf, no, they're not. It's they hear everything differently. Proprioception is a very important sense in autism. It is our body awareness. And by the way, it is connected to spirituality in a way. Mm-hmm. That's how it is important to know about it. It's how we feel our body. This is proprioception, because some autistic people don't feel their bodies, or they don't feel boundary. They don't feel where their body ends and the environment begins. See? How can we say? Because they cannot tell us. They don't think that 99% of population experience the world differently. You know what I mean? They are born with this perception. It's up to us to find out and help them, right? Then proprioception is also about our inner receptors inside our bodies, receptors which tell us when we are hungry or thirsty or when it is time to go to the toilet. Because some autistic children and adults don't feel it. And we know individuals who can go without any food for days even, if they're not reminded, because their body doesn't tell them it's time to eat. We know some autistic individuals who will eat and eat and eat, because their body doesn't tell them you're full, stop. Mm-hmm. And the same goes for toilet. Some autistic people don't feel that their bladder is full, for example. So it's all about proprioception. So this sense is very important in autism. And vestibular, it's about movement, right? Whether we are in a horizontal position or upright. And so this is 7 senses, right? And they should be investigated. Now, perception. Perception is a process by which our organism collects information through the senses, interprets this information, and know what to do with it, right? Sort of comprehension. Yes. For example, if I look at one of the objects on my desk in front of me now, and the first stage of this perception will be sensation. That is why I see a rectangular object, right? Then I touch it. I can touch it, and then I see it is made of paper. And the second stage is interpretation. I recognize it. It's a book. And then I know what to do with it. I know I can read this book. If the person is sort of blind, for example, right? One sense is absent, but he's not autistic. they can recognize the same object by touch, right?
Yes.
And if it is in Braille, they can read it. So see, even people with lack of sight, for example, they do develop the same way, like sort of so-called normal people develop. In autism, it will be very, very different. In the past, it was believed that they just didn't understand anything, and that is why they were labeled mentally retarded, right?
Yes.
Or like my son, hopeless, because in the past it was believed their problems started at the stage of interpretation. No. Now we know it's all at the stage of sensation. They experience everything differently. They see, hear, touch, smell everything differently. Very difficult even to imagine.
But to give a tip to the listener, there is it's a comedy movie. It's not about autism, but it talks about altered sensations. And it's the name in English is Senseless. It's a funny movie, and at the same time it shows like a guy. He is in college, and he is, because he needs the money, so he's subjected to an experiment in a laboratory, and they give him a drug that alters his 5 senses. And it's so funny because it shows how his input is changed. The way he is collecting that input is changed.
Absolutely, yes. But these individuals are born with their senses. They don't know differently. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So they start experiencing the world differently.
Yes.
And that is why they form different concepts, cognitive development. That is why their language development is different. And that is why, yes, they have problems with social impairments, we say, right, or communication impairments. It's not about impairment. It's about difference. Yes, they can be disabling in this environment, and that's why we see, because I'm not saying that autism is a disability or autism is a difference. It can be both. It is a difference, yes, because they experience everything differently. But it can be a disability when it is disabling in certain environments. For example, when some stimuli are painful. For example, fluorescent lights. Quite a few autistic people can see a 6-cycle flickering of these lights. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Sitting in a room, like in disco night.
Wow.
And then people ask you to do this, not to do that.
Yeah.
How long will you tolerate it? 5 minutes, 10?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure we all is sort of start behaving oddly and possibly, inappropriately, right?
Oh, yes.
Because we cannot see it. But for the person, it is very painful to be in this environment. So, see, autism can be disabling.
It can be disabling.
Yes, but it is a difference. So if we can accommodate and help these people to desensitize them, for example, right? Or sometimes, yes, medical help is needed. So we can help them to function in this environment. And of course, we have to teach them about our culture, about our world. But they have their own reality. Their perceptual world is very different. And that is why, see, who are we to say that our reality is more real than theirs? Their reactions are normal because they react to the environment, which is sometimes is very hostile to them and painful to be in.
Yes, that's very interesting. Olga, we're going to give a very short break. When we come back, we'd like to ask you more about where spirituality comes and plays a role in autism, okay?
Okay.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want to find a good way to explain life after physical death to kids or teenagers? Check out the book Message from a Teen in the Spirit World by the Spirit Neo Lucio and psychographed by Chico Xavier. In this book, a teenager named Carlos explains his impressions on the new life in the spirit realm with his discarnate relatives and new friends. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
The Spiritist magazine is a trimestral, digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide. Subscribe now at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
Listen to our sister radio, Bazera Online Web Radio, retransmitting Kardec radio shows 3 times a day. Also, beautiful and inspiring programs in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to www.spiritist.com.
In the book, A Primer on Being Good by the Spirit May, psychographed by the medium Chico Xavier, explains in simple language appropriate for children 2 paths in life, the path of good or the path of evil. God has granted us the freedom to choose either one. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are here with Dr. Olga Bogdashina. She is one of the few experts, if not the only one thus far, on autism and its relationship with spirituality. She's talking to us directly from the United Kingdom, and we are very joyful that she's here with us, clarifying so many things about misunderstandings that people come across when they are interested in knowing more about autism. As we heard before the break, autism is more about a changed the way the sensations are being processed than anything else. So, Olga, when we talk about the senses and the input being changed in autistic people, where does spirituality come and play a role? I will say this quoting from your book. It says that spiritual development of those on autism spectrum is in fact way ahead of that of their neurotypical peers. What does that mean?
Yeah, I would say that because the spirituality is a universal feature, right? All people are open to it, but some people are more predisposed, if you like, right? Some people are more open than others. And there are several groups of people. For example, children. Children are spiritual. You know, and there is quite a lot of research has been done already. What is happening? We condition them out of their spirituality. When they start talking about their experiences, you know, seeing something and sort of it's a dream or, you know, forget it and whatever, we condition them out of their unique, if you like, experiences, right? Or there are people who have some sort of personal tragedy, sort of times of a personal tragedy, for example, loss of somebody they love or some stress. Some individuals are more open to these experiences as well. And it has been noticed that some people with what was once known as mental problem, right, have profound and spiritual religious awareness. And there's been some research on this. For example, people with temporal lobe epilepsy or people with psychosis or other. And I would say many individuals with autism are very sensitive to this experiences, sensitive to spirituality. It's interesting because some researchers, they deny even the possibility of spiritual or religious experiences or awareness in children with autism. They say, how can so-called low-functioning autistic children or adults, right, have some religious or spiritual awareness? I would say they have more spiritual awareness than normal, so-called normal people, because of their sensitivities. And it's not only sensory sensitivities, because I distinguish sensory sensitivities, cognitive sensitivities, emotional sensitivities, and of course spiritual sensitivities. To give you just one example, let us start with sensory dysfunction. I have no statistics, but I'm pretty sure that about 97-99% of the population are affected with sensory dysfunction. They are dysfunctional in their sensory perception because sort of main characteristics of this dysfunction, and all sensory modalities can be affected. Detection of sensory stimuli and amount of sensory information we can process, because our brains and central nervous system protect us. They filter sensory stimulation. So we see or hear or smell or whatever a very limited amount of it. Sort of I am with Henry Bergson on this and Aldous Huxley. They developed this theory that it sort of filters in the brain. But some individuals, and in this case autistic individuals, they have no filters.
All right.
They are not protected. And like Donna Williams, a lady, a very, very intelligent lady with autism, says, we have no brain, sieves in our brains. So all information comes in at the stage of sensation that is not interpretation yet. And that is why they are so easily overloaded. See, they are not dysfunctional in sensory perception. They are better than us. They get more information, but
they don't filter.
Yes, and sort of they are easily overloaded with this. But they detect many stimuli that we do not know that they exist.
It's so interesting you're saying this, because a renowned person in Brazil who became the greatest humanitarian of all times, and he was also a medium, named Chico Xavier, he actually said about autism that autistic people, they are actually tuned in a different world, in the sense of their attention is focused on the spiritual realm. And that's why, physically speaking, it becomes like as if they are detached. So he says, we need to do everything to bring that person to the world. Otherwise, the attention is going to be focused on something that is happening. And for us, our audience is totally into the understanding that there is another dimension, that there is a non-local reality, if we say this way, to which probably these people are tuned in. And I'm mentioning this because in your book, or in your books, you talk about religious and spiritual experiences, saying that autistic people, they are actually more easily prone to it. How so? Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, I'm not talking about all autistic people, okay?
Sure.
Those who are very, very sensitive. It's sometimes these experiences look like ESP, and they are normal. They are not supernatural. It's just that we around them fail to see, hear, smell, or feel all these experiences, right? Some of them feel or see, and I do mean visual images, energy. Tito, he's an Indian boy or young man now, but they live in America. He writes about it, about seeing energy in his books quite a lot. Some people can hear radio waves from transistors which switch off but not still plugged in, you know? And it is real. Can you imagine how they cope with this? And some people, they're afraid to talk about their experiences because they don't want some to be considered crazy or whatever, you know? I discussed this topic with many families. Even parents say, look, we will tell you, but we don't want you to tell others. Because, you know, if something is strange we think, it is abnormal and so on and so forth. But quite a few autistic individuals are brave enough, and they do describe their experiences, and I collected some examples in my books. So these are very real experiences for them, and we have to accept it, and we have to learn from them. I'm learning from these people all the time. The problem is, the more I learn, the more I know, the more I understand how little I know and how much there is to learn about it. We've just started this process, but researchers do try to catch up now, investigating all this, interesting phenomena. So I'm quite happy about it. And again, I have to tell you, it's not about only sensory, this visual and auditory experiences. It's about emotional sensitivities as well. Take this phenomenon, for example. Stephen Shaw, an adult with autism, he calls it echo-emotica. People, and many people with autism, both children and adults, feel physically emotions of those around them. It is really funny that in the past, in the textbooks, in all textbooks on autism, they said they don't understand emotions, they cannot interpret it sort of the way we do, right?
Yes.
They cannot say, oh, you are sad, or you are happy. No, they sense the emotions. I know it from personal experiences, not only with my son, but with people I worked with autism. And so if you try to pretend you're happy and you are not, you are boiling inside, expect inappropriate behaviors from autistic individuals. So it's so important to know, because they cannot separate the emotions they're feeling and emotions of people around them. It is this physical level, and sometimes it is frightening. Like Stephen Shaw says, I always ask my wife, if we are in the same room, are you feeling anxious, or is it me? She said, oh no, it's I'm so anxious. Okay, okay, that is your problem then. You see, it's and he is very high functioning. Can you imagine something like this in so-called low functioning, non-verbal child? Sometimes carers themselves trigger these behaviors if they are angry or if they are very upset, you know what I mean? And the child is so sensitive, he would react to these emotions, these physical feelings. So this oneness, this is unity with people around them. It is very spiritual, isn't it?
Yes, it's very spiritual.
To feel that you are sort of part of, you are one with others. And there are so many other phenomena in autism, quite common in autism, what Henry Bergson called intellectual sympathy, intuition, and autistic people describe it as merging with objects, animals, people, or resonating with objects, animals, and people. You see, there are two types of knowledge. It is to know about objects and to know through the experience, to become objects themselves or plants or whatever. And autobiographical work is full of it. Autistic people do describe these experiences.
That's interesting. We're going to give a short break. When we come back, the last part of our program with Olga here about practical ways in which we can support the spiritual needs of autistic people.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Would you like to liberate yourself from your life struggles or to find inner balance? The Inner Journey CD has 3 beautiful visualizations that will help you bring harmony to your life. As Joanna DeAngeli tells us to, live in a way that you leave enlightening footprints in your pathway as if they were stars pointing out the pathway to happiness. To find this CD, go to the bookstore on the Spiritist Society of Baltimore webpage, www.ssbaltimore.org. That is www.ssbaltimore.org, and start your inner journey today.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
A new masterpiece has just been released by EDI-CEI of America, Memoirs of a Suicide by Yvonne Pereira, a phenomenal book about what happens to suicides in the afterlife. Truly instructive, it brings greater hope that no one really dies or spends eternity in damnation. A true account of the mercy and providence of God. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we're back, and if you're asking about the books by Dr. Olga Bogdashina, you can actually go to Amazon.com or Google it. It's Autism and the Edges of the Known World, as well as Autism and Spirituality. It's worth reading it. It's worth talking about it, sharing it with others, because as Dr. Olga is telling us, there's so much still to be investigated and understood at this point. Scientists cannot tell precisely why autism happens, but we know some things that are quite crucial to deal with it, to manage it, and to live a possibly happy life in the autistic world. So do you really think, Olga, based on your studies and your own experience, there are practical ways of supporting the spiritual needs of people with autism, including their families?
If you ask me whether this book is practical, I will tell you yes and no. No, in a way, there are no bullet points, do this, don't do that, you know? And yes, because it describes what is going on. As I said, there are no two autistic individuals with exactly the same experiences. So I cannot provide these bullet points, sort of, John should do this.
Okay.
Shouldn't do that.
Yes.
You see, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to show the processes, I show experiences. If we know that they're happening, if we know what they experience, right, we can recognize it. And parents do recognize what I am describing. And they say, oh, if he experiences it this way, I can do this to help him. Or I can sort of help him to understand that it is okay to experience it, and I will help him sort of to understand how to behave in this situation or that situation. But there are no, I'm honest, there are no bullet points telling people what to do, what not to do.
But what could possibly be some ways of supporting their spiritual needs?
Recognize them first. Recognize that they do exist. And then behave as it is absolutely normal experiences, because they are. When we tell the person, don't mention it, never talk about it, you know, and don't do that, see, we're sort of shutting them out of our life completely. If they experience everything differently, right, their reality is very, very real. So we have to accept this. We have to help them to cope in our world, and I will tell you, it is sometimes very, very autism unfriendly. It is too loud, right? It is too bright, and so on and so forth. And they're very sensitive. As I said, it's desensitization, because if the person is suffering from being outside in some public places, we have to help them. And there are strategies, and there are sort of equipment, and like Erlen lenses or tinted lenses for visual hypersensitivity.
Yes. But Olga, let me ask you this, because our audience is very much into the spiritual. When you say that we need to support their spiritual needs, what does that mean? It means like prayer, meditation. What is it?
They will tell you. I mean, not that I need this, this, and this. If you know what is happening, you will recognize, and you will recognize strategies they have been already using all their lives. Like, see, there are several features of autistic spiritual experiences. First, it is simply being, right? It's again Donna Williams' terminology. By the way, they're more spiritual in this aspect, because, you know, self, what is self? Real self, and what is our ego. So our ego, it's not spiritual, we know that. So, and they have easy access to their real self. That's what Donna Williams calls simply being. So it is okay to give them time to simply be, not to make them pretend they are normal or they should behave normally all the time. Give them time because it is really very important. Then, quite a few autistic individuals experience OBE, out-of-body experiences. It seems to be quite common in autism. Again, if you want them to be open about their experiences, so don't tell them that it is, it's rubbish, don't talk about it and whatever. Again, help them to understand that it is quite normal. By the way, I am pretty sure if we consider these experiences, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences and others, to be always a feature of mental illness, I'm pretty sure there are no healthy person in the world. Because at least once everyone has experienced something like this. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So we should be more accepting. And then heightened awareness of certain, I don't know, different people describe different experiences, certain phenomenon. So it's okay to encourage them to talk about it and discuss it, right? And then their connection to plants, animals. It's interesting because they are more connected to nature. They are more fascinated with nature. And it is, again, interesting. They have this super ability, if you like, to connect, right? To be one with the universe. And we think that it is sort of a bad sign because they are sort of too absorbed. And another thing, we cannot appreciate this ability because we never experienced it. So why appreciate something that we haven't experienced? So we have to be more open to all these unusual, if you like, experiences in autism. And again, resonance, right, merging with experiences, they are more in tune with what is happening around them. So what I would say, it's better to research it, to find these causes. And by the way, as I said, researchers are catching up. Now they do investigate this phenomenon, yes?
That's interesting. For the parents and educators, especially the parents who have autistic kids and are listening to us now, what would you like to say as your final comment that can give them some hope for the experience they are living in?
Start looking at autism as a difference, yes, sometimes disabling, and then we will find ways to help them, but it is just a difference, and we have to understand what is going on. Don't just say, they lack this, they lack that. What is interesting? All these theories that were originated in the past about autism, in a way they are right. Like the theory, autistic people lack theory of mind. That is, they do not understand our emotions, they do not understand our behaviors, they do not understand our feelings, right? And intentions. I agree with this. This is true. But I disagree with one-sidedness of this theory. Do we understand their behaviors? Do we understand their emotions? Do we understand their intentions? Sorry, we don't. It means we lack theory of autistic mind because their development is different. Their experiences are normal, right? So we have to accept this. So it's time to recognize that they are also valid experiences. And it's not that we are perfect and they are not. No, let us learn from each other. From each other, not just teaching them, but learning from them as well. And by the way, I can really promise you, you will enrich your own world. Because see, autism, I know this autism wars on the internet. Some parents say autism is a blessing, others say autism is a curse.
Yes.
It's not good or bad. It can be both. I'm sorry, non-autism can be both.
Yes.
Non-autism can be good, can be bad. So it is both. I was lucky, if you like, because 25 years ago, it was the first time I heard the word autism. So I didn't know anything about it. I just started. So for me, it was neutral. I never thought whether it is good or bad. I was so happy to discover the name of my son's condition. And even now, I am happy about it because I know what it is. As I said, I'm learning every day, and I'm learning a lot from my son and from those people I work with. So please, 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 let us learn from each other. Let us unite our efforts to understand the world and enrich our lives. Autism can help us a lot. I can tell you, it is so different. It is so fascinating. It can help us to understand ourselves. I promise you, those who live or work with these people change themselves.
Yeah.
For example, my personality is different now than it was 25 years ago. I found myself, and it is a different self from the one it was. So autism will help us understand not only autistic people, but understand ourselves.
That's beautiful. And you know, your open mind and your open heart advising everyone to feel the same. Thank you so much, Olga, for your time, for your wisdom, and we wish you the very best in your research and your experience as well. Thank you for being with us at Kardec Radio.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
So, dear listener, we just heard from Dr. Olga Bogdashina some of the most recent findings on research. Basically, she's telling us that we need to pay attention to the ways in which autistic children are perceiving the world. It is different. It is not less in any way. It's just different. So there are ways for us to accommodate it. There's so much to know regarding the scientific, physical aspect of it. But spiritually speaking, we have a lot that has already been researched, spiritually speaking. And we have disclosed at the beginning of the program the Spiritist take on it. Most of it, the spiritual approach is probably the way to go regarding autism. As John De Rosa here asked, and we apologize, John, we were not able to relay your question, but when you mentioned about the book by Dr. Nathan Campbell McBride on autism, the approach on changing nutritional aspects, you're right. That's something that most recently has been proposed. But scientifically, we don't know quite, it's not mainstream yet, that nutritional, that diet would shift the whole autistic condition. But we can tell that some doctors are taking that approach. And that's something really to consider, because in the Spiritist take, we know that mind and body, spirit, perispirit, and physical body are interconnected. Not only the mind of the spirit is imprinting its vibrations on the physical body, but the physical body experiences is also impacting on the way in which the connection happens from body to perispirit, then to spirit. Something really to make us meditate. Nutrition in an overall picture is something we need to change to live a better life in any ways. Like the Gospel According to Spiritism by Allan Kardec, he talks about the importance of taking care of body and spirit. Many people are concerned about spirit, but they forgot that the wise spirits actually recommended take care of body, because we are incarnated. If you don't take care of your body, this physical life is going to perish sooner than later, which is considered suicide in Spiritism. Even if it's a slow process, it's considered indirect suicide. So it's very important not to give junk food to our bodies and eat healthy. Thank you, John, for bringing that up. Also, we have here a very interesting discussion brought in by Tiago Sicone and replies by Diego Neri Castro, and we'll read some of it just to make us think more deeply about some aspects that Dr. Bogdashina was talking about, and unfortunately, we can't discuss these aspects with her because she is telling us things from a scientific perspective. But we, in the Spiritist perspective, we can discuss this very easily. Diego actually says, oneness may be far beyond, well, actually, it's before then. Tiago says, oneness is related with what is called synesthesia, where there is some sort of fusion of the senses. It reminds me as well of the spiritual senses, which are not limited to the physical sensorial organs. And we think you're in the right direction. And then Diego Neri Castro jumps into this beautiful discussion and says, oneness may be far beyond synesthesia, a concept you explained very well, Tiago, but I believe oneness is quite very spiritual in its mechanisms and functionality. And as we say here at Kardec Radio, this is a discussion that certainly science cannot resolve as of yet, but we can hypothesize it based on the Spiritist teaching, especially if you go to the book, the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec. There's a whole chapter talking about where perception of the spirit happens. It's all in the spiritual body. Then Tiago Sicone says, I understand I'm trying to make only a parallel between those ideas because synesthesia is a very important way to navigate in order to further understand the paraspiritual senses. And Tiago Sicone proceeds by rectifying Chico Xavier's assertion on autistic people's dimension of perception. So, dear listeners, you can tell that Dr. Bogdashina is walking towards that direction. She is really coming very close to what Spiritism already understands. We can understand the mind of the autistic kid if and only if we perceive it beyond the physical body. If we attune our spiritual senses to connect mind to mind, spirit to spirit, like the recommendation by Chico Xavier and the renowned educator in the Spiritist movement, Euripides Barçanufo. That's the only way out. It takes exercise and probably training, something that Spiritist centers can help, reaching out parents and educators to get to know more about the soul that is currently diagnosed with autism. Let us remember, these labels are temporary, and we shouldn't encapsulate ourselves or our kids in these labels because science is still trying to understand what autism is. It's actually a whole spectrum of disorders, not only one single type, something really to be better understood as science advances. For now, we leave you with a lot of hope, and as the message at the beginning says, wait and love always. That's the only way to go. And thank you, Tiago, for thanking us for this discussion. Thank you guys for bringing such insightful comments here. And now, don't go away because, Kardec Radio, starting next week, is going to have new days of the week for you. Can you believe it? We have just turned into our third year of programs at Kardec Radio. And starting August 1st, Thursday, August 1st, you will be able to listen to Spiritist talks from great speakers all over the world. This is a program that is coordinated by Daniel Santos through the Spiritist Network. Also, every Saturday, live interviews on topics that will bridge up health, spirituality, spiritism for you here at Kardec Radio. On Sundays, we have all the segments that you usually hear on Saturdays. They are now going to have their own space. They became so popular, they became so greatly on demand that now they're going to deserve their own program, Spiritist Awareness, every Sunday. And on Wednesdays, starting August 7th, we have God at Home directly from the United Kingdom. Francisca Kranz together with a community of British Spiritist friends, are leading a beautiful program at Kardec Radio every Wednesday for you at 5 p.m. entitled God at Home. Unique opportunities for all of us. Soon this week in our website is going to be displaying all these changes, beautiful programs, all for you to nourish your soul. Right now we're going to go for a short break, but when we come back, Kardec Radio's team is going to relay to you most beautiful messages about Spiritism that can really be transformative to your heart. If you have questions, comments, you can call us now because we're live, 858-769-4705, or you can email to us at kardecradio@gmail.com. We will be super happy to answer to you, to receive your feedback, to get your suggestions and improve our service to you all the more. Right now, our break and then segments on Spiritist awareness.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Come and listen to our CD, Unfolding Our Spiritual Nature, Path of Harmony, by Dr. Raul Teixeira. The CD has questions and answers on euthanasia, suicide, pain relief, past life therapy, prayer and better attunement, law and affinity, the spirit world, raising our thoughts, and much more. You can purchase the CD by visiting SSB online bookstore at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Known as one of the most scientific books by Allan Kardec, The Genesis dives deeper into the origins of our planet to the advent of the new generations to come. Purchase your copy today, online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book Action and Reaction by the Spirit Andrea Louise, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
And now we return to our program.
It is with joy that we welcome you back to this Spiritist moment here at Kardec Radio. I am Kirsten DeMello. We are continuing our study of the divine natural laws because we know wholeheartedly and believe what the spirits tell us in this particular book, that it is the pathway for us to find our inner joy, our inner happiness, and our connection with God. We learned that this particular law, the law of society, and if you'd like to follow along with us, it is questions 766 through 768, when the spirits let us know that we need to live in society. Allow us to quote directly from question 766. Is societal life natural? And the spirits answer, certainly. God has made humans for living in society. Otherwise, it would have been needless for God to have endowed them with speech and all other faculties necessary for a life of relationship. And we see this verified in a book that's not yet in English, that was psychographed by Divaldo P. Franco by his spirit guide, Joanna De Angelis, a book that's entitled The Moral Laws of Life, when she tells us in a chapter that is specific to the law of society, chapter 31, when she says that man is unquestionably a gregarious being that's organized by emotions or of emotions for a life in society. So we see that the very way that God has created us with the ability to express our emotions, albeit not as advanced as it can be yet, but we are progressing. But through all of this deductive reasoning, we can come to this conclusion that by the mere way that we are created, we are meant to live a life of society. But not to go to the extreme. We have to remember also to keep our connection, our relationship with God ongoing. As the famous quote goes, we should be in the world and not of the world, which means we can live in society but without being materialistic. a topic we can dive more in depth to in another day. And the spirits tell us that living in, quote, absolute isolation is contrary to this law of nature, because we are meant to live with one another. Also because we need one another. The spirits tell us that we do not have all the faculties that we need to progress. So inevitably we need one another. Allow us to share this beautiful story that's in another book that's, again, not in English yet, but if it were, it would be called something like Christian Dawn. It was psychographed by Chico Xavier by the spirit Neo Lucio. And it's a story that's entitled, we would say, The Cleaning Angel. Allow us to read it for you because it illustrates this idea of the need to live in society and help one another. Adelia heard about Jesus, and she was taken over by a great passion for heaven, that she began to nurture only one desire, to be an angel to serve the divine master. And for this, the kind girl made herself humble and a believer, and when she couldn't be found in school in contact with her books, she maintained herself at her bedside in fervent prayers, surrounded by beautiful engravings by artists, making you recall the passage of Christ while amongst men. Tearful, she repeated, "Lord, I want to be yours. I want to serve you." Her dear mother, in the domestic struggle, emphatically invited her to the services of the house. Adelia smiled, hugged her, and reaffirmed the proposal to prepare herself for the company of the divine friend. The kind woman, observing that the ideal of her daughter deserved only praises, left her in peace with her studies and daily prayers. Month after month, the young girl proceeded unalterable, praying always, supplicating the Heavenly Father to turn her into an angel. After 2 months of requests, she dreamed one night that she was visited by the loving Master. Jesus was surrounded by a vast aura of sublime clarity. His glowing tunic fell over his shoulders with grace and beauty. It looked like white snow reflecting the sun. Extending his right hand compassionately, Christ said to her, "Adelia, I heard your prayers and have come to meet you. Do you really want to serve me?" "Oh, yes, Lord," responded the small girl, inflamed with jubilant commotion, convinced that that Savior would at that very moment lead her up to heaven. "Listen," replied the Master sweetly. Anxious to go to paradise, the youngster replied reverently, "Say it, Lord. I am ready. Take me with you. I feel anxious to appear among those who retain the glory of serving you in the heavenly realm." Christ smiled kindly and regarded. "No, Adelia. Our Father did not put you uselessly on the earth. We have great services in this world itself. I appreciate your prayers and your thoughts of love. But I need someone to help me take out the garbage and debris that are piling up not far from your house. Cruel boys are damaging the sewage network a short distance from your home. There is a dangerous concentration of diseases threatening unsuspecting workers, devoted mothers, and unsuspecting children. Go, my daughter. Help me save them from death. I will be with you, helping you in this worthy task." The worried young girl wanted to ask questions, but the Master pulled away lightly. She awoke startled. It was daytime. She got dressed quickly and went to find the indicated area. Courageously, she gathered all the disinfectants, arming herself with a shovel and a broom, and asked for maternal contribution, and the infectious concentration was extinguished. The obedient disciple, however, never stopped. Every day when she returned from school, she collaborated with her mother at home, ensuring also, when it was possible, through the hygiene of the public pathways, that she would teach other kids to take care of themselves as she did herself. After so much work and effort, one day the director of her school conferred upon her the title of the Cleaning Angel. Teachers and classmates commemorated this festive event. When nighttime arrived, she slept contently and dreamt that Jesus came to her again. Covered in light, he hugged her tenderly and said gently, "Blessed you are, my daughter. Now that man himself recognizes you as a benefactor, I thank you for the services you provide me daily. Cleaning angel of the earth, you will be the angel of light in paradise." With intense tears of happiness, Adelia woke up happy, understanding once and for all that true happiness is in collaborating with the Lord in the works of goodness everywhere. Dear friends, we hope this has enlightened your soul as it enlightened ours. Let us continue in this pathway just as Adelia did, knowing we need to leave our homes and go and work for the goodness, not of ourselves, but of others. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.
Hello, dear Kardec Radio listener. This is Marco Magalhães, and welcome to the segment Spiritism in Your Life. Dear listeners, we're going to have a special topic for the segment for the next few weeks, and the topic is prayers. And we're going to start with a very interesting book by Andrea Luiz called Between Heaven and Earth. And the reason why we're going to bring this book is that the whole story starts with a prayer, and the prayer by Evelina asking her mother that passed away recently to help her stepmother, who is going through a very, very difficult health problem and relationship problem in their home. So this is the initial setup of this book, and the whole story is going to go around discussing this unique moment. So what is so important about this? A few new concepts about prayer rise in this book. One of the most interesting ones is that Andrea Luiz describes a prayer as this energetic impulse that has a specific frequency, a specific amplitude, and a specific energy, which means that other spirits will tune in to the frequency of the prayer that you're emitting by your thoughts the time you start praying. So that's a very simple concept. If you're elevating your thoughts from deep inside your heart and putting a lot of energy into your prayer is going to reach higher and higher and will probably be heard or be tuned in by spirits that are going to be in that same vibrational state. In this case, Evelina's prayer was so pure, was so elevated, and she was putting so much love into her thoughts and through her words that it reached André Luiz, Clarencio, and Hilario at Nosso Lar. And all of them together, listening to that prayer, decide to do a study on the situation in order to prepare a way to answer that prayer. So that's the second very interesting topic that we learn in this book, is that there is a whole system that is out there ready to help us. But it's not simply listening to the prayer and coming down and help us. It actually involves some very detailed planning and analysis of the situation. What to do? What is the best thing for the person's prayer? How can we help according to divine providence and without disrespecting the free will and the reincarnatory plans of the person that's asking for help? So that's another very interesting story, because now they're going to come down to help Evelina, but in a very organized way. The third interesting aspect of prayer that we're going to discuss today is the fact that the discarnated mother of Evelina, which is called Odila, is actually the obsessor of the stepmother Zumira. And interestingly enough, Evelina is asking Odila to help Zumira recover. Although at that specific point in time in the story, Odila is the one causing most of the problems that Zumira is going through. But of course, then her prayer at that time to Odila wouldn't be effective, because Odila is not in a position to help anyone. So her prayer is diverted up, which means that another spirit was able to listen and to tune into that message and to that request, just because it was very pure, with the best of intentions and asking for something really good. So she was able to reach out higher and have its prayer diverted to someone that was actually able to help her. In summary, my friends, in this first part of our series of segments on the topic prayer, we have to remember that the more we put love the more we ask from the bottom of our hearts with the purest intentions, the higher the prayer will reach, and this emission of power which characterizes our prayers will be picked up by benevolent spirits that are going to be out there trying to help us. But although they're always going to be heard, not always we're going to receive what exactly we ask for. But we will always receive what's the best for us at that particular point in time. And we're going to finish today, my friends, with a passage from the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 28. The spirits have always said, the form means nothing. The thought is everything. Pray according to your convictions and in the manner that touches you the most. A good thought is worth more than many words that are foreign to the heart. Thank you very much, my friends, and we'll continue the topic on prayer next week. May God bless us all.
Dear listener, in this segment we will begin to tackle a very important issue, which is the target of chapter 4 of the book, The Gospel According to Spiritism. This issue is reincarnation, and the title is, Except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. First and foremost, allow me, my friend, to go back in the introduction of the same book to remind you that, in Kardec's words, this book is for everyone, from every code, because its focus is on the moral aspect of the gospel. Nevertheless, Allan Kardec didn't fail to bring the spirit knowledge, the spirit teachings, that he most intelligently gathered throughout the years, picking up from hundreds of mediumistic groups of this time. The teachings of what seems clearly to come from higher spirits, rather than those that didn't make so much sense. But you may say, so reincarnation is a spiritist dogma. Well, my friend, every spiritist dogma, if you want to say so, is available for a scientific scrutiny, and many scientists that are not stuck in the materialistic establishment have freedom to say, to analyze and say at least that there is very strong evidence that these things may happen. We are talking about the phenomena and the intellectual phenomena too. Anyway, Spiritism is such an evolutional doctrine that if one day someone comes up with a more natural, verifiable theory, Spiritism will immediately grab it, and it will become part of the doctrine according to the words of Allan Kardec himself. Having clarified this point, let's list here the 3 passages chosen by Kardec to address the issue of reincarnation in the Gospel. Number 1. He cites the passage in which Jesus Christ, asks Peter, we quote, "Who do men say the Son of Man am?" And Peter says, "They say he was Elijah or Jeremiah," showing that, we quote, reincarnation was part of the Jewish dogmas being taught under the name of resurrection. Only the Sadducees, who believed that everything ended with death, did not accept the idea of reincarnation. Jewish ideas on this point, as on many others, were not clearly defined because they had only vague and incomplete notions with regard to the soul and its connection with the body. Number 2. Kardec highlights the passage in which the evangelist Luke says that Herod, the Tetrarch, was worried because many among the Jews were saying that Jesus was John the Baptist, risen from the dead, and some that Elijah had appeared. One more time, my friend, Kardec shows how people believed in a sort of reincarnation or resurrection, although the idea really that wasn't that clear as far as a big picture of the issue is concerned. And number 3, Jesus had just been with them on the top of a mountain, and the phenomenon of the transfiguration had happened there. If you don't know, my friend, what the evangelists say, let's remember what occurred in that event. Jesus took James, Peter, and John, the apostles, up a mountain to pray. But when they were there, listen to this excerpt from a video called Jesus from the site JesusVideo.com.
Then Jesus took John and James and Peter with him and went up a hill to pray. And while he was praying, the aspect of his face changed its appearance, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly 2 men were talking with him. They were Moses and Elijah, who appeared in heavenly glory.
You will fulfill God's purpose.
You will die in Jerusalem.
Well, my friend, now a very important issue in terms of what Jesus could teach us and could not teach us then, and who was able to bear those teachings. Because when they were coming down the mountain, a great doubt came up to the apostles' minds. Yes, they had heard from the scribes that before Jesus, Elijah should have come first. How come? They had just seen Elijah, who was hundreds of years deceased, and so was Moses. Well, having reluctantly asked Jesus this question, listen to Jesus' reply. He says, we quote, Elijah truly will first come and restore all things, but I say to you that Elijah has already come, and they knew him not, but have done to him whatsoever they wanted to. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. Then the disciples understood that he spoke to them of John the Baptist. This is in Matthew chapter 7 or 17, verses 10 to 13, and Mark chapter 9, verses 11 to 13. Well, my friend, to cut a long story short, Jesus Christ takes 3 of the apostles up to a mountain. There they pray, and some phenomena starts happening, and one of them is the transfiguration, and the other is the materialization of Moses and Elijah, 2 very important personalities in the history of their people. Of course, the apostles got kind of amazed and perplexed, but another issue came to their minds, because the scribes, the studious of the Torah, they used to say that Elijah had to come first. How come? Since they had just seen Elijah in front of them up there. And that's when Jesus says, well, Elijah has already come, and he was talking about John the Baptist, according to the evangelist. But it's most interesting is not only that. Listen to this passage that is not in the Gospel according to Spiritism, as far as I remember. It's in Mark chapter 9, verse 9. We quote, As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus gave them orders not to tell anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. Well, this highlights the idea that we have. Jesus had such a worry, a pedagogical worry towards us. Jesus was such a wise master. He knew so well the nature of humankind that he had anticipated the problems his disciples, who witnessed the so-called paranormal event up there on the mountain, would have in order to explain to the others what they had seen. It happens very often in the works of evidence of the spiritist phenomenon nowadays. So many scientists have already researched and given their verdict to the facts, endorsing the evidence of the afterlife or reincarnation and the paranormal. But when they come to their academic groups, academic colleagues, no matter how wondrous these evidence can be, they face the dogmatic posture of their colleagues. Listen to what a renowned psychologist and paranormal researcher, already deceased, and writer, David Fontana, has to say when he was questioned about his attendance to a great British physical mediumship group, the Skull Group.
The experiences that I've had have convinced me that it is very difficult to explain any of these things by an alternative explanation to that of survival. These are great experiences, you see. Again, I must stress, it changes your paradigm. You go in thinking none of this can be true, but after experience after experience after experience, it gradually dawns on you, hey, there's something going on here that we can't explain by normal scientific laws, but which nevertheless exists.
Well, dear listener, although these investigators ended up publishing their conclusions in a book, too little attention have they received from a scientific establishment, and they also triggered a crisis in the association they took part in. You know, Jesus is the master. Thank you, my friend.
The following partial recording is taken from The Spirits Book by Allan Kardec. Question 139. But certain spirits and certain philosophers before them have defined the soul as being an anemic spark that has emanated from the great whole. Why the contradiction?
There is no contradiction. Everything depends on the meaning of the words. Why don't you have one word for each thing?
Author's remarks for question 139. The word soul is used to express very different things. Some call the soul the principle of life, and in this sense it is correct to state figuratively that the soul is an anemic spark that has emanated from the great whole. These last two words refer to the universal source of the vital principle, of which each being absorbs a portion, and which returns to the whole after death. This in no way excludes the idea of a moral being who is distinct and independent of matter, and who preserves its own individuality. This being is also called the soul, and according to this meaning, one could say that the soul is an incarnate spirit. In giving different definitions to the soul, the spirits have spoken according to their usages of the word and according to the terrestrial ideas with which they were imbibed to various degrees. Because human language does not have one term for each idea and is therefore inefficient, a large number of misunderstandings and arguments have resulted. Hence, the reason why the high-order spirits tell us that we should first of all try to understand each other regarding the words we use. Footnote to the word soul. See explanation of the word soul in section 2 of the introduction. Question 140. What about the theory that the soul is subdivided into as many parts as there are muscles, thus presiding over each of the body's functions?
That will also depend on the meaning attributed to the word soul. This definition is correct if by it we mean the vital fluid, but it is incorrect if we mean the incarnate spirit. We have already stated that the spirit is indivisible. It transmits movement to the organs through the intermediary fluid without dividing itself up.
Sub-question 140. And nevertheless, there are spirits who have given this definition.
Ignorant spirits may take the effect for the cause.
Author's remarks for sub-question 140. The soul acts through the organs, which are animated by the vital fluid distributed among them, and it acts more abundantly in those organs that comprise the centers or focal points of movement. This explanation, however, cannot be applied to the soul as the spirit that inhabits the body during life and leaves it at death. Question 141. Is there anything correct in the opinion of those who think the soul is outside the body and surrounds it?
The soul is not enclosed in the body like a caged bird. Rather, it radiates and manifests outside of it like a light shining from a glass globe or a sound vibrating out from a sonorous center. So, in a certain sense, it may be said that it is outside the body. It is not an envelope of the body, however. The soul has two envelopes. The first is light and subtle, which we call the perispirit. The other is dense, material, and heavy, which is the body. The soul is the center of these two envelopes, like a nut in its shell, as we have already said.
Question 142. What about another theory holding that a child's soul continues to complete itself during each stage of life?
The spirit is only one, as whole in the child as it is in the adult. As instruments of the soul's manifestation, only the bodily organs develop and complete themselves. This is one more theory that takes the effect for the cause.
Question 143. Why don't all spirits define the soul in the same way?
Not all spirits are equally enlightened regarding these matters. There are spirits who are still limited, who do not comprehend abstract ideas. They are like the children living among you. There are also pseudo-learned spirits who make a big show of words in order to assert themselves, another similarity to your society. Furthermore, even enlightened spirits may express themselves in different terms that have the same meaning, especially regarding matters that your language is incapable of clarifying. Hence, the need for allegories and comparisons that you unfortunately take literally.
Question 144. Then what is to be understood by the word soul?
The word soul is the universal principle of life and intelligence from which individualities are born. But frequently, those who use this expression do not understand it. The word soul is so flexible that everyone interprets it according to their own imaginings. At times, it has even been held that the earth itself has a soul. But by this, we must understand it to mean the assembly of devoted spirits who direct your actions in the right direction when you listen to them, and who are, in a way, the lieutenants of God on your globe.
Question 145. Why have so many ancient and modern philosophers discussed psychological science for so long without arriving at the truth?
These individuals were precursors of the external spiritist doctrine and have prepared the way for it. Being human and therefore subject to error, they have mistaken their own ideas for the light. These same errors, however, have served to bring the truth to light through the pros and cons of their doctrines. By the way, a comparative study would enable you to understand that in the midst of error there is great truth.
Question 146. Does the soul have a defined and circumscribed seat within the body?
No, although it resides more particularly in the head among great geniuses and all those who think much, and in the hearts of those who feel much, who dedicate all their actions to humankind.
Sub-question 146. What should we think about the opinion of those who place the soul in some vital center?
One could say that the spirit more specially inhabits such a part of your organism, since all the sensations converge on that point. But to place it in what may be considered at the center of vitality would be to confuse it with the vital fluid or principle. Nonetheless, one could say that the seat of the soul may be more particularly found in the organs that serve for manifesting the intellectual and moral qualities.
Welcome to our Yes, Youth Education Spiritism with Kardec Radio. I am Bernadette Leal, and I'll be spending a few minutes with you, inspiring to bring spiritual awareness and spiritist teachings to our youth, parents, and educators. Today, we will share some thoughts on honesty. Honesty is a virtue which will not bear fruits if not exercised. Spiritism wisely reminds us about inner transformation, and being honest is a great step toward our progress, so we can reach one day our perfection and spiritual evolution. We would like to begin talking about honesty by first asking and reflecting upon the following questions. Am I honest about my feelings? Am I able to express how I feel honestly without anger or blaming others for the way I feel? Can I be honest with someone in an assertive and compassionate way? Am I able to humbly admit my mistakes? Do I speak up when I see injustice? Do I act honestly at work and with my coworkers? Am I honest with my children and the ones close to me? Am I guiding my children to the path of honesty? Being honest for a selfish person may not seem that important. He may believe that it is okay to lie or distort the truth as long as it benefits him. Well, if we only consider life through a materialistic point of view and deny the immortality of the soul, then it is understandable that a person would act that way. On the other hand, the Spiritist philosophy teaches and shares so many beautiful stories about the afterlife, educating us that honesty goes beyond the grave. But even though there are still people who may not see the essential value of acting honestly, they will eventually have to face the truth, whether in the physical or spiritual realm. Thus, no matter how much we act dishonestly in our present or previous lives, our conduct will be unveiled, and we will be required to take an honest look at whom we truly are and what we have done. We may run away and avoid the truth for a while, but sooner or later it will catch up with us. As Jesus said in John 8:32, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." God gave us a wonderful gift called conscience. It is like God's voice in our head. We can lie, cheat, trick others as much as we desire, because God also gave us free will. But no matter how hard we may try, our conscience cannot be fooled, and it will remind us of what is right or wrong. Chapter 5 of the Gospel According to Spiritism by Allan Kardec illustrates it very well by saying, "Man's actual tendencies indicate what is still to be corrected, and it is upon this he should concentrate all his attention, seeing that no trace is left of what has been rectified. The good resolutions he feels bound to make are the voice of conscience, calling attention to what is right and what is wrong, so giving strength to resist temptation." Chapter 11 of the same book also adds to the topic with a beautiful sentence, quote, "To love, in the true sense of the word, is to be loyal, honest, and conscientious," unquote. And what about children? Are they honest? Well, children at a very young age are known to be sometimes brutally honest. They can express their feelings and opinion and are very good at embarrassing their parents with their honest comments at an appropriate time, right? But what to do when your child is being honest in an uncomfortable or challenging situation? Unfortunately, some parents or relatives get mad at the child, punish and reprimand him, instead of first appreciate the fact that he is speaking the truth. A child who is regularly reprimanded when he is being honest quickly learns that it is easy to lie so he won't get into trouble, and as a result, lying becomes a habit. He lies to get what he wants, to protect someone he cares. He lies because of fear, to call attention, or even to harm or cause trouble to someone. Whenever we have the opportunity, we should talk and teach children about honesty. In fact, this should be an important value to all families. And of course, parents should give the example too. When your child is speaking the truth, no matter how hard that may be, first, acknowledge that you are proud of him for being honest, and then help him to deal with the consequences in a calming and supportive way. Children are spirits in a child's body, and they can show at a very early age negative tendencies. Some children are more inclined to act dishonestly than others, and the blessings of reincarnation can explain such behavior, showing that this is a spirit who has achieved less progress in his past life. The comments of question 199 of the Spirit's book brings us more information about it through the following questions. Quote, do we not see children endowed with the vilest instincts at an age at which even the most vicious surroundings cannot have begun to exercise any influence upon them? Do we not see many who seem to bring with them at birth cunning, falseness, perfidy, and even the instincts of thieving and murder? And this is in spite of the good examples by which they are surrounded? Unquote. Dear listeners, it is the parents' responsibility to guide and help to correct those instincts and lead children to a better way of life and conduct. Kardec Radio listeners, honesty is a great virtue that once nurtured in our hearts and fully embraced will lead us to the path of integrity and light. It brings us peace and moves us forward to our moral and spiritual progress by living a life of truth regardless of the situation. It is a sincere and frank voice that comes from within our souls, a voice of justice, a voice of love, a voice of compassion, a voice of proper conduct. And we will end the segment with a beautiful quote from Mother Teresa. Quote, people are often unreasonable and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are honest, people may cheat you. Be honest anyway. If you find happiness, people may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give your best anyway. For you see, in the end, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. Unquote. Thanks for listening to Yes. And if you have any questions that would like us to answer, please email them to Kardec at kardecradio.com.
Dear listener, we hope you have enjoyed the whole program. And usually we end the program with a final prayer, but Bernadette Leal made this moment the final prayer. By Mother Teresa, let us then just listen to the music for a minute or two and meditate how much things are always between us and God and never between somebody else and us. Dear listener, meditate on the times in which you get discouraged because others do not encourage you. So remember, it's always between you and God, never between others and you. Let us meditate on the times we get into despair because we are depending on somebody else's, or we feel hatred because somebody died. Let us raise our soul and raise our deep awareness that what others do is never good, but what we do is between us and God. Let us send our gratitude to all those who contributed to this moment of nourishment for our soul. May all those who are listening to this program or who are not receive the shower blessing, and we would like to request that your kindness bring new resources for parents and educators who are experiencing the challenges of autism in their children. May love and care be the ultimate tools to strengthen their souls so they can succeed in this life, building a future, a beautiful future for the whole family. And so be it. Dear listener, in a week, we have actually in less than a week, August 1st, the first Spiritist Talk program on Thursdays. You're going to be rejoicing with the new programs at Kardec Radio on Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Wednesdays. Just wait and see, because Kardec Radio's team is expanding. We are always open to suggestions, help, and comments. And next Saturday, we have here Dr. Lambert, who is bringing to us something that is unprecedented: how prayer can help couples live a better life. Something that science has never proved, and was proved by Dr. Lambert's group for the first time. There he's going to explain how partner-focused prayer for your couple, for the couple, the spouse, etc., can shift the relationship and everything else. Something that we need to know more about the mechanisms so we can apply it in our lives. Question to you: do you pray for your partner? How often? Because usually we pray for the whole world, but we often forget to pray for the person who is living right there with us, eating the salt of life every day. So, dear listener, we wish you many blessings and a lot of joy in your week.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardakradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.